Welcome to Quick MCAT Lessons, where I try to explain MCAT topics in 10 minutes or less. Today, I'm going to be talking about the alimentary canal. So the alimentary canal consists of the oral cavity, the pharynx, the esophagus, the stomach, the small and large intestines, the rectum, and the anus. So with that, let's get started. So let's start with the oral cavity here. So the digestive process begins in the mouth, which is responsible for mechanical digestion through chewing, which is also called mastication, and for preparing food for swallowing. Now the tongue helps in positioning food and initiating swallowing. Saliva is also important for mastication as it has enzymes that are crucial for starting the digestion process. Saliva is produced by 3 pairs of salivary glands that sit in the oral cavity. As we talked about earlier, these salivary glands, like all glands of the digestive tract, are innervated by the parasympathetic nervous system. The presence of food in the oral cavity leads to parasympathetic stimulation of these glands. Saliva contains salivary amylase and salivary lipase. Salivary amylase, also known as ptyalin with the silent P, is capable of hydrolyzing starch into smaller sugars, which is needed to start the breakdown of carbohydrates. Salivary lipase catalyzes the hydrolysis of lipids, which starts the breakdown of fats. The tongue, combined with saliva and chewing, forms the food into a bolus, which is forced into the pharynx and swallowed. Now the pharynx, or the throat, is a muscular tube shared by the respiratory and digestive systems. It can be divided in 3 parts: the nasopharynx, which is behind the nasal cavity, the oropharynx, which is at the back of the mouth, and the laryngopharynx, which was above the vocal cords. When swallowing, the epiglottis closes off the entrance to the larynx and trachea so that food passes into the esophagus. This is why when you talk while you eat, you may choke as the epiglottis is open when talking, and this lets food into the trachea. Now the esophagus is a muscular tube that connects the pharynx to the stomach. The top third of the esophagus is composed of skeletal muscle, which is under somatic or voluntary control. The bottom third is composed of smooth muscle, and it is under autonomic control or involuntary control. And for that matter, most of the gastrointestinal tract is also under autonomic or involuntary control. And the middle third is a mixture of smooth and skeletal muscle. Now the esophagus uses peristalsis, which is a wave-like series of smooth muscle contractions to move food downward regardless of body position. However, in certain conditions, this can be reversed, leading to emesis, which you may know as vomiting. Now the digestive system has sphincters. Sphincters are ring-like muscles that control the movement of food and waste through the digestive tract. They act as valves, opening and closing to regulate the flow of material between different sections of the digestive system. There are several key sphincters, each with a specific role in digestion. And the first sphincters that are seen in the digestive system are in the esophagus. And so swallowing is initiated in the muscles of the oropharynx, and this constitutes the upper esophageal sphincter. Peristalsis squeezes, pushes, and propels the bolus towards the stomach. As the bolus approaches the stomach, it encounters another sphincter. This is called the lower esophageal sphincter, also known as the cardiac sphincter. This relaxes and opens to allow the passage of food from the esophagus into the stomach. Now, this is really important because if you didn't have the sphincter here, then whenever you moved around, the acid in your stomach would go up into your esophagus, and that would give you really bad burns because you don't have the mucus protective layers in your esophagus. And so issues with this sphincter closing properly or relaxing inappropriately can lead to acid reflux, also known as gastroesophageal reflux disease, or GERD. Okay, so now the food is in the stomach. The stomach is a muscular, J-shaped organ located in the upper left abdomen. It acts as a holding chamber where food is churned and mixed with gastric secretions. The stomach has 4 anatomical regions: the fundus, body, pylorus, and antrum. The fundus is the uppermost region, the body is the biggest region, the pylorus is the lowermost region, and the antrum is the area that has the pyloric sphincter and connects to the duodenum. Now the internal curvature of the stomach is called the lesser curvature, and the external curvature is called the greater curvature. Now, if you draw a capital J on a piece of paper, you'll see that the left side has a smaller curve and the right side has a bigger curve because it goes all the way around. And so the left side is called the internal curvature and the right side is called the greater curvature if the J is a stomach. In the stomach lining, there are also gastric ruchae. These are the folds in the lining that allow it to expand when food enters. When the stomach is empty, these folds are prominent. As the stomach fills with food, the ruchae flatten out, allowing the stomach to expand and hold more volume. And so the fundus and body contain mostly gastric glands, which secrete hydrochloric acid and pepsin. And the pylorus and antrum contain mostly pyloric glands, which secrete mucus and gastrin. Now, the gastric glands, which are in the fundus and body, respond to signals from the vagus nerve of the parasympathetic system. These signals are activated in response to the sight, taste, and smell of food. And gastric glands have 3 different cell types: mucus cells, chief cells, and parietal cells. Mucus cells produce the bicarbonate-rich mucus that protects the muscular wall from the harshly acidic, with a pH of 2, and proteolytic environment of the stomach. Gastric juice is a combination of secretions from the other 2 types in the gastric glands. The chief cells secrete pepsinogen. This is the inactive or zymogen form of pepsin. Pepsin is a proteolytic enzyme. And so parietal cells secrete hydrochloric acid. This hydrochloric acid's hydrogen ions can cleave pepsinogen to make pepsin. Pepsin digests proteins by cleaving peptide bonds near aromatic amino acids. This results in short peptide fragments. Because pepsin is activated by the acidic environment, it follows that pepsin is most active at a low pH. This is a unique characteristic among human enzymes, as most human enzymes are most active at physiological pH. And so with this, we have in the mouth, we have salivary amylase and lipase, which break down carbohydrates and lipids. And then in the stomach, we have pepsin, which breaks down proteins. And those are the 3 main energy sources, and they're all getting broken down. And so it's important to know how really acidic the stomach acid is, right? It can kill almost all harmful bacteria, with the exception of Helicobacter pylori, which is an infection that is usually asymptomatic but can cause inflammation, ulcers, and even certain gastric cancers. The acidic environment also helps to denature proteins and can break down some intramolecular bonds that hold food together. In addition to hydrochloric acid, parietal cells secrete intrinsic factor, which is a glycoprotein involved in the proper absorption of vitamin B12. And so let's move on to the pyloric glands. The pyloric glands contain G cells that secrete gastrin. Gastrin is a peptide hormone. Gastrin induces the parietal cells in the stomach to secrete more hydrochloric acid and signals the stomach to contract, mixing its contents. The digestion of solid food in the stomach results in an acidic, semi-fluid mixture known as chyme. The combined mechanical and chemical digestive activities of the stomach result in a significant increase in the surface area of the now unrecognizable food particles. So when the chyme reaches the small intestine, the absorption of nutrients from it can be maximized. There are a few substances that are absorbed directly from the stomach, such as alcohol and aspirin, but the stomach is mainly an organ of digestion. And so just to recap the stomach aspect really quickly, the stomach has the fundus, the body, the pylorus, and antrum. The fundus and body consist of mainly gastric glands. Gastric glands have parietal cells, chief cells, and mucus cells. Mucus cells produce mucus that is bicarbonate rich to help protect the stomach lining. Parietal cells secrete hydrochloric acid and intrinsic factor. Intrinsic factor, recall, is used to absorb B12, and hydrochloric acid is just the acid, stomach acid, and it also converts pepsinogen to pepsin with this hydrogen ion. Pepsinogen and gastric lipase are secreted by chief cells. And recall, pepsinogen breaks down proteins, and gastric lipase is similar to salivary lipase, it breaks down fats. Finally, the pyloric glands contain G cells which secrete gastrin. Gastrin induces the parietal cells to secrete more hydrochloric acid. It also induces the stomach to keep mixing and churning the bolus into chyme. This allows for maximal digestion in the small intestine and large intestine. That's it for today. Next time we'll go over the intestines.